What is going on, Governors? Chisgule here, and today we're going to help you get sweet value with Aethelflaed. We're going to expertise ours. We can do the expertise skill today, which is amazing. And then we're going to talk about some incredible combinations with this must-use, and I truly mean must-use, commander, for both pay-to-win and free-to-play. This commander is exceptional. If you like Rise of Kingdoms videos where we help you trick out your commanders, you should like and subscribe, because this is not the first time, nor is it the last, that we're going to be talking all about commanders, and we are a sponsored creator with Rise of Kingdoms. First order of business, let's unlock this expertise skill, because that is tremendously exciting. We're going to apply the very last skill here. Boom. Upgrade that. For me, it was the 4th skill. It's totally fine. This is not a commander you need to worry about it as much with, because you can get the sculptures from the metal shop. We'll talk about what I'm going to do with my metals after this, because what do you do with metals after this commander's expertise? So let's go in now, and you have to actually tap this button in the center to unlock the expertise skill. I once did that with Sun Tzu and didn't tap it and then used it to defend a flag without the expertise skill. Gross. Let's push the button. Here we go. Boom. Yeah. Expertise skill unlocked, baby. Warrior Queen. Deal an extra 20% damage to enemies who've been slowed. Now, there's some important stuff to talk about here with enemies who've been slowed and how you can effectively apply slows with Aethelflaed, because you've got a bunch of tools in the toolbox to go and do that. Now, let's take Aethelflaed out on the battlefield using a combination that I actually think is exceptionally good, and we're going to get a report out of that deal in order to show you the way that the slow mechanic works, which is very, very important. Now, this is the first unexpected pairing, by the way, that I don't know that I've seen people use on the battlefield, but it is tremendous. What is happening with this pairing that is so exceptional? Aethelflaed with Yi Seong-Gye. Aethelflaed with Yi Seong-Gye. I'm going to fire these two off to go hit somebody, and I'm just going to glance at the skills here. Yi Seong-Gye does care about archers, but doesn't require you to have archers. He enhances the damage of whoever he's paired with, and he does a huge circle area of effect if you have him expertised. Now, Aethelflaed, she's got that nice AoE that you see here is going across a huge wave. Wow, look how much damage we did. Good lord, I did not expect that to go so fast. Holy jeez. Holy jeez. We might need to bring some different commanders to show how some of these mechanics work. We'll show this again just so you can get an actual look at it this time. She does a fan that is a very nice area of effect. Huge radius. Even though it is sort of a frontal effect, it's not a cone. You can see it's like a full fan. It's a half circle there, which is pretty amazing. Gosh, the damage is so unbelievable with that combination. Aethelflaed, Yi Seong-Gye. The reason I really like this combination is that Aethelflaed is your rage engine. That is because she is a support commander, and support commander has this talent over here, Rejuvenate. Rejuvenate means that when the primary commander uses an active skill, you get 150 rage restored. When the secondary commander uses an active skill, you get 150 rage restored, which means every single time you use a primary and a secondary skill, you're 30% of the way to using the active skills all over again, which is pretty good. And that doesn't even include all the rage you're already getting from normal attacks and counterattacks and all that sort of good stuff. So, the reason that I think that's a great pairing is that Aethelflaed is going to do that awesome AoE, debuffing the health and defense of the enemies in front of you, and then Yi Seong-Gye is just going to go boom, blowing up everybody nearby with just unbelievable damage. And the 20% damage boost is super relevant, but you might be wondering, Chisgule, how do you get the 20% damage boost? How do you get this 20% damage boost? The enemies have to be slowed. And this brings us to a couple very important points. First of all, I would make the argument that Aethelflaed is most optimal in big team fights, huge battles where there's a bunch of players on the field that are going to be applying slows. That said, Aethelflaed has multiple ways to apply her own slows. What, she doesn't need anybody else? What makes you think she needs anybody else? On Thunderous Force, she can apply slows to targets, but it's inconsistent, it's unreliable. There's basically a 10% chance on normal attack you're going to apply a slow. Well, you don't want to slow just the target you're hitting. With the primary attack, with the normal attacks, you want to slow everybody. Everybody gets a slow. You get a slow, and you get a slow, and you get a slow. Now, there's a couple ways you can go about doing that. One is to pair her with, again, commanders that can go and do that. Another thought is to say, well, I'm just going to be on the battlefield with a bunch of other people that are going and doing that. Of course, good news, my friends, is that Aethelflaed comes with her own slowing technology in Cage of Thorns. This is a talent that you could go and pick up that I think is pretty worthwhile if you are going to be on the battlefield with this commander. And again, you should be. You should be. Cage of Thorns makes it so that after using an active skill, it reduces the march speed of enemy units by some amount, and it's, I think, 15% at max, for a total of 3 seconds and a maximum of 5 targets. This is how you ensure that when the area of effect damage from Isongye hits, that all the targets are slowed, and Aethelflaed doesn't do that much damage anyways, and this is the thing that I wanted to talk about. Let's talk about how slows are applied. The way this talent would work is that when you use your active skill, on the turn it is used, you're going to do a bunch of damage, and the effects will then be applied on the next turn. So turn 1 is the active skill from Aethelflaed, boom, doing damage. Turn 2 is a period of downtime between active skills, and now it's the first of the 3 seconds that goes to the slow. On turn 3, now you're going to have the active skill of your secondary commander fire off, boom, doing optimally really big damage, especially if you're using like an Isongye. And that is going to be turn 2 of the slow being applied. The next turn, you're still going to be building up rage for your active skills, and that'll be the 3rd second of the slow applying, and then your slow is going to, actually, your slow should be renewed. I missed something. Your slow should be renewed when Isongye does his active skill. We'd have to actually go and look in the logs to check it out, but you get the idea. I do expect that if you pick up Cage of Thorns, you'll be generating enough rage that although you're going to be firing off skills really fast, you're not going to be able to use Cage of Thorns to have Aethelflaed's primary attack also benefit from the slow. And that's okay. I'm not even all that worried about it because there's a lot of combinations here, and we need to talk about the combinations that can do the same thing that an Isongye could do. And there's a bunch of different ways to slice it. Now, if you were going to go about bringing Isongye with Aethelflaed, one thing I would make sure to do is to bring 3 different types of troops. I don't think Fortress of Mercia's bonus damage is restricted to when you have a rally only. I think if you bring 3 different types of troops, your damage will be increased by 20%, even in the open field. So you want to bring some small number of infantry and some small number of cavalry if you are going to use Aethelflaed primary with Isongye. That way you get that 20% bonus damage, which we didn't even have in this moment ago. We were running that clip doing a bunch of damage. I suppose we could run around and battle a couple 25 barbarians and just test that real quick and confirm. I'll probably go do that and stitch it together for this video. However, what I would recommend here is that if you weren't going to use Isongye, which is a gangbuster pairing, what else could you do? If you wanted to bring mostly infantry, you could make a very tanky debuff unit that is going to have a lot of staying power on the battlefield. Now, the reason I like this combination is that it is reducing march speed of enemies, which means you don't need to go in and have Aethelflaed's skill, or rather Aethelflaed's talent, Cage of Thorns, to have a slow. Here you'll be getting a slow. It's only for 2 seconds, but there's also this slow over here to a primary target that you're dealing damage to. I think this is a pretty interesting combination, and it's something that's worth considering. That said, the combination that I have put a lot of stock into, and I've seen very powerful whales use this combination, even though they have a ton of other commanders available. They use this combination, Aethelflaed, Hannibal, Barca, and I love it, and here's why. If you use Aethelflaed primary and Barca secondary, you are going to be applying a ton of debuffs to the enemies, and the thing that Hannibal Barca's always needed is a huge rage engine to keep these debuffs rolling. He doesn't generate very much rage, and the rage engine on Aethelflaed does the job. So an expertise Hannibal Barca hits 3 targets, decreases the damage of the targets by 25%, decreases the defense of the targets by 25%, and that lasts for a solid 5 seconds, which is really great. So not only are you damaging a lot of targets by doing AoE, but also you're machine gunning that out, debuffing the enemies, which if you're filling a supportive role or you're making a murder ball, that's really quite strong. That is quite strong. Now, another commander you could get a look at is Mehmed II. Mehmed II does AoE damage, and he definitely cares about having all those debuffs applied. I think that would be a fine combination to machine gun out huge AoE damage in an open field brawl, and I would recommend that combination actually pretty highly. Now, let's go into the free-to-play realm, because that's the thing I promised that this commander could do, and we should talk about different pairings that deliver on that. One commander that is truly almost at the legendary tier, to be honest. Like, they may as well paint this guy orange. He's so good. And that's Sun Tzu. Sun Tzu is just incredible. The rage engine that comes with Sun Tzu Aethelflaed is just otherworldly. You might actually be able to generate so much rage with that combination that Aethelflaed's Cage of Thorns would fire off when Sun Tzu's active skill goes off, and you might have enough rage that within 3 seconds of that, Aethelflaed's primary skill is hitting again. This is just an insane combination due to Sun Tzu's rage generation, due to Sun Tzu's AoE. Sun Tzu doesn't even care all that much about having infantry. There's only 10% of stats here for specifically having infantry, so you could bring a completely mixed army and not even feel like you need to lean toward bringing mostly infantry. In addition, he's going to enhance the damage dealt by Aethelflaed, not by a ton, but it is increasing the active skill damage, and there is synergy there. I think this is a stupendous combination, free to play. You could use this pairing and go completely ham in the open field, debuffing people like crazy and doing pretty moderate damage, even with T4 technology only. Another commander that I think was kind of underrated as a pairing here would be Kusunoki, and you would want to bring mostly archers in that configuration, but he does have AoE and he clears debuffs off of himself, which I think gives the army some amount of sustain and ability to continue to deliver punch on the field, even in the face of duress, where they're getting hit with debuffs and slows and all kinds of other things too. Kusunoki, I think, is a great pairing, and as a free-to-play player, you could feel really good about that combo. Now, if what you wanted to do was to just be as tanky as possible and survive as long as possible with your Aethelflaed combo, and you're truly focused just on the debuffing aspect of being in the open field, then you could use Scipio in order to elevate the tankiness of your army and survivability of your army. Several of the skills here give you that, including bringing more troops on the 4th skill, which I think is a mighty fine combination for that configuration. A pairing that I think is less exciting for single target damage would be Osman. And the reason I'm less excited about that is that while I do love that this 3rd skill is going to be going off like crazy due to Aethelflaed's rage engine, and I do think Osman has really been wanting that sort of a rage engine in order to get maximum value. The downside is that if you're in the realm of the free-to-play, you can focus on doing damage, but you're not going to have as much technology as everybody else to do big damage. I actually think the better commander to bring for being a supportive commander, assuming you're only going to bring 1 march, would be Joan of Arc. And of course, that is because of this skill right here, increasing the rage generation of everybody nearby, including, by the way, your own army. Including your own army. This is the slam dunk number 1 pick. If you're in the realm of free to play and you do not have an expertise Hannibal Barca, I would say Joan of Arc's the pick. And Joan of Arc might even be better than the expertise Hannibal Barca, to be perfectly honest. These buffs are quite strong, and the rage generation is just otherworldly. That is a really sweet pairing. Now, people have pointed out to me in the past that you could also use buy bars, and if you are going the route of wanting to do a lot of damage, again, I do think Sun Tzu is better, but buy bars does do a slow on the current target. I would argue that slowing the current target is kind of small potatoes these days. You need to slow all 5 targets. You need to slow all 5 targets. That's the thing we're trying to do here. So I think there's better commanders to go and do that. And like, honestly, you can use the technology built into Aethelflaed in the form of Cage of Thorns, that top tier talent from the support tree, and that is a better way to be applying slows. So I would not use buy bars for the purpose of trying to apply slows, although I do like that his generous fan AoE hits a solid 5 targets and has a really solid damage factor, so you could go that route to do damage. I would argue that slam dunk Sun Tzu is better, but you know what? You might have Sun Tzu somewhere else on the battlefield, and for that reason, you could fall back on using buy bars. But if I were to rank these from like my number 1 pick to, the very bottom of the barrel, my number 1 will be Joan of Arc. My number 2 will be Sun Tzu. My number 3, I'm going to just give it a tie, 'cause I'm not sure. They're all a pretty reasonable step below Sun Tzu and Joan of Arc, but it would be buy bars and CPO and Kusunoki. Now, there's other commanders that are going to be great. Boudica's going to be great if you were to pair her with Aethelflaed. She's going to do some healing, give you some sustain in that form, but also generates rage, which means your rage engines go and choo-choo out the station. I feel like those are some fine combinations. Now, at the legendary tier, I actually would consider using Aethelflaed with Yi Seong-Gye for myself. I would consider doing that. And the reason is that it will just do so much damage and provide debuffs to everything that's going on nearby. As I unlock more commanders and I consolidate into the very best open field marches possible, because like, look, we have enough expertise legendaries here that like we're getting to the point where we can pick and choose which ones really are the very, very best of the best for being in the open field with all 5 marches. It could be that Hannibal Barca really isn't the best pick to put with Aethelflaed, and that the very best use of Yi Seong-Gye might be behind Aethelflaed. That way I'm doing a bunch of debuffs with Aethelflaed. I'm building the rage engine from the Art of Archery, restoring rage with a 10% chance for that to proc, and doing huge AoE damage. I think that could be really exceptional in the open field for a huge brawl by an Ark of Osiris, which, like, yes, we care about doing huge amounts of damage in the open field by the Ark of Osiris. Card up in the top if you want to see the craziness that was our last Ark of Osiris, where, you would have a lot of targets to hit, and it would be very, 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 very beneficial. Oh, man. Let's go and do the testing that I promised we would do. If we bring Aethelflaed, and let's see here. Let's bring Hannibal Barca. I want to run a couple tests. So this first test I want to run is going to illustrate the Aethelflaed Barca combination. And the Aethelflaed Barca combination should apply a lot of debuffs for a lot of time. Let's go and see how this works. What I expect will happen is that Aethelflaed will apply her damage. On the next turn, she applies her debuff for the first second. On the next turn, Barca applies his damage, and you can see that going on there. And that'll be the second turn of Aethelflaed's debuff. And on the third turn, we'll see Barca's debuff applied. But look how fast these skills fire off. You wouldn't even get 5 seconds of Barca's debuff. I'm actually really eager to see how these stack up when we look at the report in just a second here. Because look at the speed at which these are firing. Any additional rage to that engine would just be totally insane. Let's go here. And this is why I think, by the way, like, Yi Seong-Gye is just an insane pairing here. It's just an insane pairing. So if we look at the battle log, and we get a sense of what's happening, we get a sense of what's happening here. The first active skill is going to fire off. Let's see here. This attack triggered Hannibal Barca's Expedition. So the attack triggered Rejuvenate. That means the active skill was used. It restored 150 rage. Aethelflaed, there it is. Couldn't find it. Aethelflaed cast Arrow of Iron. Right, so she cast Arrow of Iron. Hidden Wrath gave her 6 rage. Burning Blood gave her 9 rage. Expedition triggered from Hannibal Barca, elevating skill damage by 15%. And the Formation Destruction effect is applied to Calvin's troops for 2 turns. Withered effect is applied for 2 turns. And Army Weakening for 2 turns. So let's see here. Arrow of Iron decreased, let's see, defense decreased by 30%, health decreased by 30%, and attack decreased by 30%. That's what we were looking for from Arrow of Iron. This is the turn of downtime, by the way. And now, this is now turn 3, where Hannibal Barca's active skill should fire. We see this was the last turn, 0 turns left, on Arrow of Iron. Rejuvenate triggers again, which we expected. Expedition triggers again, elevating the skill. No, it's all damage by 15% for 3 seconds. And then War Elephant's first application fires off. Defection effect is applied. Exhaust effect is applied for 5 turns. And Formation Destruction effect is applied for 5 turns. Okay, let's get a look at that. On the very next turn, let's see here. All damage is decreased by 25% due to exhaustion, and all units' defense is decreased by 25% due to the Formation Destruction effect. There we go. So that's the application of War Elephants, which is going to last for another 4 turns. If we look here, it's got 3 turns left, 2 turns left, 1 turn left, 0 turns left, and what magic with the timing of these skills and the amount of rage that we're getting. But now Arrow of Iron is cast again. And when Arrow of Iron is cast again, now that effect is applied. So even without a rage engine, you can see how absolutely insane Aethelflaed Barca is as a combination. Totally nuts. Totally nuts. I honestly would be taking Aethelflaed to 6 stars if I wasn't potentially waiting for a commander like Wu Zetian to hit the Card King event, if I wasn't waiting for potentially Edward of Woodstock to be arguably like a must-use primary commander, which could be the case for rallying stuff. So I'm saving my stars so that I could apply them to one of those commanders if that becomes a thing. By the way, here's the number of stars that we have. We definitely have enough to take one commander to 6 stars from 5, but I don't know that. In fact, we definitely don't have enough to do 2. We might be getting close, though. We might be getting close. So with that said, there was one other test I wanted to do here. The other test I wanted to do was figuring out if bringing a mixed army would elevate the damage of the army. So what I'm going to do is we're going to look at this report, and we're going to go to the battle log, and we're going to look at what the normal attack damage was for the first attack, and we're going to see if it's elevated. We're going to see if it's elevated when we bring a mixed army. So Aethelflaed attacked Calvin, and the Calvin lost 878 troops. And it's important to mention that we were not on Alliance territory when that fight happened. We were not on Alliance territory. So we need to go bring a mixed army now with the same commanders to make an apples-to-apples comparison. So we're going to bring Aethelflaed, and we're going to bring Hannibal Barca. Now we're going to bring a mixed army. And we're going to do the suggestion I was making, which is that you could bring a small number of the other types of troops. We'll bring that small number. Now we need to go find a level 25 that is not on Alliance territory. I may have made this a lot harder for myself than I intended. All right, we're going to battle 2 25s. We're going to battle one down over here. Okay, so we're about to hit the first 25. Here we go. We'll get a look in the report at the damage that we deal. Hopefully this player is not coming to me. That'd be awkward. Also, hopefully we don't. I guess it's okay if we aggro something else now. We're just going to look at the normal attack damage for the first attack. So this is fine. This is fine. So in this configuration, we are using the mixed army. And you can see how generous that AoE is from Aethelflaed here, hitting that unit that was way off to the side. So we're getting some free value, which, you know I love value. You know I love value. We're going to battle this barbarian. We'll get the report. We'll run it back to town. And then we send out the army again. So here we go. Run the army back to town. Check out the report. Look at the battle log. The very first attack, 1,157 units. Yeah, I think it works. So this could be Alliance territory. We're getting both the benefit of Alliance territory and also mixed army now. So, and the other thing about mixed army, son of a gun, Barca also really cares about mixed army. He's going to do 10% extra damage by having a mixed army. But 30% extra damage should be very noticeable. Let's just try it with this configuration. I bet you this is going to work anyways. So here we go. We're going to take this out for a spin because speed, baby. And let's see how this goes. All right, and we're about to head. So this time we've brought full cavalry. We expect the normal attack damage is going to be less. That is because of the skills on both Aethelflaed and Barca, so we expect it should be substantially less. 10% from Barca and 20% from Aethelflaed. So let's see if that is the case. Let us see if that is the case. Gosh, that rage engine is so magical. That rage engine is so magical. And the debuffs are just pretty tremendous here for a murder ball. Pretty tremendous. There we go. Reports in. What do we got? Battle log. The first hit, 987. No, 984. I can read. 984. So, that to me is saying that both Barca and Aethelflaed's did not apply, because obviously that a 10% lift to that amount of damage would not equal the damage we had before, which was like 1170 something. And the way that the damage boosts work, and we should explain this a little bit, the way that damage boosts like this work is that it's not giving you like 10% total more damage when you have something like this. It's a multiplier on some part of the calculus for how you do damage, but it's not a multiplier to the total amount that you were doing. So, if we were doing 1,000 damage before, if you add in 10% bonus damage, weirdly, it does not make it so that now you're doing 1,100. And that has to do with somehow either the way the multiplier works, the defense of the enemy works, but you never see that translate directly into like a straight damage boost. We actually saw that be the case with a bunch of testing we did with Groggy way back in the day, with Freddy and also Sun Tzu and Yi Song-Ye. Groggy's super chill, originally from Kingdom 53, joined me in Kingdom 39 and is here now. But we did a bunch of testing back in the day with the way damage boosts work, and now we're really geeking out. And maybe I should restart that like Does It Stack series I did a long time ago, card up in the top, because that was actually a super cool idea. Gosh darn it, I'm writing that down. Memo. We do that again. That was fun. If you want me to resume that series, let me know. To finish my thought, I suppose. I'm all over the place. To finish my thought, we did testing with Freddy, and we saw that the 50% boost from Yi Song-Ye didn't actually give like 50% more damage to Freddy's skill. It was more like 38% damage boost to Freddy's skill. And that's not because the skill is mislabeled. It's labeled correctly. It's just that the way that the multipliers all work for elevating your damage and I guess the defense of the enemy, some magic factor there makes it so that it's not just like straight up. If you were doing, a total of 800 damage factor per hit, that like you make it 50% bigger and it's 1,200 damage factor per hit. It's not exactly how it works. Although I better be careful in what I say there, because maybe that's how it works, but other parts of the equation changed around. The thing is, we don't actually know. Nobody knows, because these equations are not revealed to players and have asked for them, and that is a part of the secret sauce. That is something we'll, I suppose, always be wondering. By the way, I did promise I would answer this last question, which is, what do you do with your medals? Look how many of these we have. 768,000 medals. And like, yeah, a star costs 150. I don't know. What do we buy? We don't need any of the epic commanders. We don't need Constance. We don't need Aethelflaed. Should we be saving our currency? Is it possible that they'll add something else to the medal store at some point? Maybe. Maybe. A couple thoughts. First and foremost, I'm getting every food token I can find. I'm getting every speed up token I can find. I'm taking every gold star I can find. I'm taking pretty much every legendary I can find in this section, with the exception of the ones that are expertise already for me. And, you know, I can hit refresh here, even though it's 100 gems, whatever. I just show you what this looks like, right? Oh, we also take experience tomes. See, I'm glad we did the refresh. We take this over here. But I'm not going to take these epic commander sculptures. Definitely don't do that. You could take the Aethelflaed sculptures and say, well, I'm just going to turn them in during the next KVK event, during the 3 stages that lead up to, I guess it's the 3rd stage of clearing the Crusader Fort. But you're probably going to have enough sculptures anyways. You don't need to be picking up Aethelflaed every day. Aethelflaed would be the most optimal to do for that because it's 1,500 currency per head, which is really cheap and is also better value than going with the epics. With that said, you always could wait until that event comes around and then just go completely ham on whatever epic commander is available, and that's also probably just fine because you can do that infinitely. I'm going to hang on to my currency. An argument could be made that maybe I should be picking up epic stars because they might add, you know, level 65. You know, 60 to 65 it could become a thing. Or they could add up to level 70 or up to level 75 or even level 100. I mean, they could do something like that. It feels like that's pretty far off, though, and we still have more epic sculptures and stars than we know what to do with. So I'm going to buy the things I mentioned moments ago and just hang on to currency. So my friends, hopefully you found this video informative, educational. We went deep on mechanics. Was that interesting? Do you like that? If so, like and subscribe. That's how we know to do more videos like this. And until next time, you have fun smashing the kingdom.